Hello, everyone, and welcome back to HSU Podcast. Today is our second episode, and our topic is shamanism. A little bit about our podcast. We are trying to open up the space and provide our community with cultural and social stories. I am your host, Madison Yang, also known as the Vice President of HSU for the 2020 to 2021 school year. Today we have our special guest. Her name is GaoNeng, and she is a shaman. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. Can you give us a little bit about your background and how long have you been a shaman?
Yeah, so I've been a shaman for this will be my 14th year. Yeah, so the type of spiritual guides I have ancestral guides and I also have what's called heavenly guides. And so because of the differences in the types of guides I have, then I do practice what traditional shamans who have ancestral guides, what they practice. And I also do what's a little bit different in our community. We call it and so it allows me to do readings without trancing and without being in front of my altar. And so I do spiritual healing. I do readings. I do different kinds of readings. I can, do palm readings. I also can do facial readings. And I also can channel into a person's spirituality, and I'm able to, give you an idea of, what's going on with you on the spiritual side. If you have a strong, soul spirit, or if you are in need of healing. And so there's different things that shamans can do. And so it's good to learn a little bit about each kind so that you can be aware of the different types of shamans out there.
That's very interesting. I personally have been really interested and intrigued with like card tarot readings and also
Mhm,
just like general readings about my horoscope.
mhm.
I think it's very interesting and it provides a sense of comfort to a lot of people. So, um, so for people that are not familiar with the subject, can you give a general overview of what shamanism is?
Okay. Yeah. So with shamanism, you are born with a calling, a spiritual calling to be a shaman. And the way I see it is that it's a genetic ability, something that we acquire through our genetics. Traditionally, we don't view it that way. But for me, that's how I see it. And so it's passed down from your ancestors to you, and so most shamans will have symptoms of some sort. It might be in their early childhood that they start recognizing. They might sense energy. They might sense extra, like other energy. And so it might make them feel uncomfortable. They might feel like there's something lurking, behind, the shadows. And so it might make them feel just a little bit fearful, afraid of what's doing that to them. Over the course of time, they might see other signs, and then traditionally, shamans would get physical ailments. They would be affected in their health. And what I'm seeing now is that if you have this heavenly spiritual guides, in addition to, you might have ancestral guides, what happens is you're more affected in your mental health. So your mental health wellness will be affected. You might experience depression. You might feel like there's just an emptiness, a longing, and trying to find yourself, trying to find a sense of belonging, and maybe not be able to find that. And so you will just kind of really question who you are and your purpose. And some of us, we go through that and we might not realize that we it might be due to a spiritual calling that we have, because we would just see it as, that's just normal. And so over the course course of time, it might escalate into, your depression might get worse, or it might escalate into health issues until until you start questioning what's wrong with you, and you want to seek answers. And so if you get to a point where you're wanting to seek answers, then that's what is supposed to happen, because all these imbalances are causing you to seek answers. And you can discover that, oh, I have a spiritual calling, I have a shamanic calling. And so if we don't have those imbalances, then we really, don't know any better, and we don't know to go seek that out. And so a shaman, because they have that calling, then at a point they will have to make a decision that, okay, I have this calling, and so I'm going to go ahead and pursue it. I'm going to go ahead and choose to go that path and develop my calling, develop the skills that I might have. Then you would have to look for a teacher, which we call a sifu, and that teacher would bridge your guides to you. The teacher would have to trance and do a ritual, a ceremony, where they would have to go to the higher realms to bridge your guides to you. And you would have a little altar, and the guides would be settle upon that altar. And in that ceremony, then the shaman would try to induct you. And so the shaman would try to see if you would shake. And that will let you know if you have that spiritual calling. Sometimes you might have a hard time finding a compatible seafood. And so you might not be able to shake. You might not be able to break that barrier unless you find the teacher that's compatible for you. And so what a shaman does is they do spiritual healings for your soul, for your spirit. Sometimes we go through life and we encounter a lot of issues. We might encounter mental health issues. We might encounter physical health issues. And sometimes it might just be where there's conflict between, each other, between family members, between you and your spouse, your loved ones. And we never think it could be spiritually related. But a shaman is able to trance and to look into your spirituality, and to be able to see that you have some spiritual imbalances, that you need some spiritual healing. And so the shaman is able to do those spiritual healings to bring balances back to your spiritual energy, which will transfer over, and it will help to bring wellness to you on the physical side. And so if your cause is due to spiritual causes, then a shaman is able to help you in that way. If your issues is due to other things, is just purely physical health, then the shaman will not be able to help you. And so, sometimes we don't believe in things like that, because we grow up in a country where, everybody has walked so far away from spiritualism. And most people don't even know what it is, or most people, it's, to them, it's fantasy. And so it's very hard for people to buy into that unless they have had that experience, and unless they have been able to receive healings that has helped them. And so I think that it's really important for people to be open-minded. I always suggest that you always seek out health professionals first, seek out, professional help first. And if they are not able to help you, then, be open to healing your spirit. Because in order for us to be well and to have, good health, um, for some of us, it might be really hard for you to believe that you have a spirit, you have a soul. But if you can imagine that, on the physical side, we need to have physical health. And if you had a spirit, a soul, there needs to be, like balances for that side too. And so if you do not have that, then as a whole, you're not going to have balances. There's going to be imbalances that will cause issues for you somewhere along the way. So a shaman is able to do things like that and to help bring wellness back to you.
Would you say that there's a difference in finding your shamanic path in the Americas versus our homeland in Laos and Thailand?
So you mean, would the approach be different if I am helping someone who is Hmong versus someone who is not Hmong? Or are you referring to like in just the path in which I would take to help somebody in spite of who they are?
Uh-huh. The path that you would take despite all of that. Would it
Okay.
be different or?
Mainly what I do when I trance is I I channel into their spiritual energy. And so when I do that I sit on my bench and I actually lean backwards a little. So I need my helper to kind of help hold me on my back so that I don't fall over. By doing that, I'm able to connect with them on their spiritual side, and I'm able to see, past traumas that they might have had. I'm able to see if their soul spirit, if their spiritual energy is intact, or if it's kind of just withering, and if it's needing healing. And so by doing that, I'm kind of doing what doctors would do, is like testing them, giving them tests to see what they are needing, to see what is lacking and to see what imbalances there are. So the way I would approach it would be the same in spite of the racial background. Of course, um, if I'm looking to see if somebody has a shamanic calling, then, you know, depending on what racial background you are, um, how I will induct your guides to you might be a little different. And so, for Hmong people, we believe that our ancestral guides, they were, given back to us from Shi, which is a legendary shaman. And so Shi only applies to Hmong people. And so if I were to help somebody else who is a different race, then I would not approach it in that way. I would not try to see if he has shaman guides from Shi. I would look I would look at his spiritual side to see, where I need to go in order to connect him or her to their spiritual guides. And so, in that sense, if I'm trying to connect to the past, if I'm trying to connect to their higher self, then their guides might come from a different realm, a different dimension. And so I would approach it differently than, if you were someone who is Hmong and you have a Hmong background and you have ancestral guides. At the same time, even though you're Hmong, you might have guides who come from different realms. And so, just because you share the same racial background, it doesn't mean that everybody will have guides from the same place. And so each person, they might have guides from a different realm. And so that part will be a little different. But sometimes if we are not, familiar with it, we're not aware, we feel like a little bit, how would I go about doing this? When you have spiritual guides that are leading you in your trance and in your journey, then they are very intelligent beings and they will guide you. If you ever feel like, okay, I'm at this point, this happens to me, I do this a lot. I get to a point where, okay, I'm not sure what to do. Then I refer back to my guides and I would ask them, okay, we're here now. What do we do? And then for some reason, it seems like there's like a little antenna somewhere. And so they would kind of check and then they would respond back. And they would always have answers for me. And they would always be able to guide me and to lead me in where I need to go. I don't think I've ever really felt lost in doing my spiritual healings. The only times that are really hard and it's a struggle is when you first become a shaman, when you first take on that step and that decision to find a shaman master, a teacher. And when you first are inducted, then everything is just dark to you. You have no idea what to do. It's just, you're just blind to everything. But once you get past the early phases, your shamanic experience and journey, then it really becomes easy and your guides really direct you and help you find your way.
Thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. I did not know that, depending on their background, they all have different guides. That is very interesting. Next question. What was a pivotal moment in your shamanic journey that really tested or expanded your position as a shaman?
I think that as a new shaman, we're always tested at the beginning. That's like the time period where, you either make it or it breaks you. And so it's really important to be strong, to have a support system when you decide to take that path, to take that route. In absence of a support system, it's very easy to fail. It's very easy to give up. It's very easy to feel like you are in limbo. And so when you feel like you're in limbo and you feel, depending on your experience, sometimes you just feel like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not making any progress. And what is this? I can't do this anymore, right? And for some people, they will actually experience dark energy that will creep up on them, and it will actually make their life really scary and miserable. And so you have to be very strong. And in the beginning, that's the hardest part to overcome and to be able to pass that point. So for me, I was a single parent when I started. And so I was very fortunate to have the support of my parents. My son at that time, he was still small. And, I'm the parent, but I was depending on him. I was, like depending on him to help me because I was feeling very small at that time because I couldn't overcome what I was having to deal with. And so it was a lot to put on him. He was very brave and he helped me through a lot. Anyways, yes, it's a very hard period at the beginning. Other times that might be challenging. As you learn and as you develop as a shaman, you just really need your helper, who is the one that goes and with you to help others. They are the one that is on the outside. And they are the one that helps you if you need to burn joss paper, whatever you need, if you need your sword, if you need someone to hold you while you are trancing, then they are your helper. You really need that person to be dependable. And there's been a few instances where persons helping me, they made me feel really nervous because they were not doing things the way that they needed to. And so during those moments, it's really important to have that person help you, because if they do not do what they're supposed to do, if they don't do their job correctly, what happens is I think we are warned as shamans that we should not have someone cross our path when we are trancing, and there are certain things that we need to avoid. But nobody really understands or knows why. We just know that, okay, that's something that you want to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's something I've never understood. And I don't know if some shamans even understand what's happening and why they have those situations where it has to be avoided. And so what I'm seeing is that though in those situations, if somebody crosses in front of you, if there are certain things that happen that is not supposed to happen, your guides actually let go of you. They detach from you. And so you're supposed to still be somewhere between spiritual and physical, right? And if your guys let go of you, then you're going to fall into wherever it is that you are at. And so that will make it so that your spiritual energy becomes, stuck in limbo or becomes lost in limbo. That's the reason why people are not allowed to cross you. And um, there's actually been shamans where that happens, and the shaman will just fall. They will collapse there, and the people on the outside, if they don't know what to do, then you are stuck with a situation that is going to be very hard to deal with. So if situations like that happen, then that family actually has to be the one that finds a shaman to remedy that situation. I think that's something that nobody has ever been able to tell me why that's avoided, but what I'm realizing is that that's what happens. And for some shamans, they are more strict than others. For others, there's a little bit more leverage, and so it just depends on what kinds of guides you have. So shamans, they can get hurt spiritually if they are not careful. So it's very important for shamans to be careful. And that's why what we call the husho, who is their side help, that person is the one that helps them, is familiar with how they do things. That person knows what needs to be done. And most shamans will not go under trance if they do not have their usual helper. There are some shamans that they are okay and willing to have anyone that is experienced being the side help to help them. I am not one of those. For me, I have to have my usual side help. Like I said, they have to understand how you do things, and when you ask for certain things, they have to know how to do it. Otherwise, it can have consequences for you. If that person does not understand what's needed, if that person is not able to give you the help that you need, you could just like fall on the spot. That has never happened to me. Like I said, what happens is that your guides can just detach from you. They'll just let go because maybe they couldn't hold on to you or whatever has happened. When someone crosses over, you're actually interfering with the energy field and the spiritual energy around the shaman. And so it kind of intercepts without the intention to do so. The spiritual guides will kind of just let go, and then that person kind of falls into limbo, into nothingness, and so that person will just collapse. And I've actually not seen what happens after that, but what I hear is that when that happens, then you have to find someone to remedy it. There has been situations where um, people are not, like, my side help is not doing what I'm wanting them to do, or they didn't do it right. And what happens is that the shaman will, I'm not sure how to describe it, but you will get a very, very, very anxious feeling. It would be a very uncomfortable feeling. And so what happens is that the shaman might get very upset at the people that are helping, because they understand that they're being put at risk. If you're not careful, and on the spiritual side, you undergo something that is not safe for you, the shaman, their guides will let go of them, and they won't be able to reconnect with their guides, because this happens in the middle of nowhere. between the realms, that you're going to have to somehow find a way to reconnect them to their spiritual guides. And if that doesn't happen, they will lose who they are. This is like worst case scenario. The shaman can just have mental illness after that, and they won't be who they are anymore if you don't find the help that is needed. And so I know someone that has happened to, and it's a very sad situation. Sometimes people can do things that are causing imbalances for the shaman, and the shaman can undergo issues, and it will usually be mental health issues. And so that's why it's really important for the Husha, the side help, to be reliable, to know what they're doing. And that's not something that is easy to deal with or is easy to remedy. The part you had asked about if there's a moment where I felt like I expanded just my knowledge as a shaman. Over the course of time, you will grow. If you are open-minded and you invest the time and you dedicate yourself to learning more, to being able to expand your practice as a shaman, then your guides, they will push you to higher enlightenment. It also depends on what kind of a shaman you are. You might not have the guides, the type of spiritual guides that can help to raise your vibrations so that you can reach that higher enlightenment or higher consciousness. If you do have those types of guides that can do that, and if you're lazy and you don't dedicate time to your practice, shamanism works the same as any kind of learning, any field. The harder you work and you dedicate yourself, then you will grow more. And so they will be able to show you things and to introduce you to new ways to deal with a situation, to a new way to heal something. And so you don't believe that, you're not open-minded to that idea, then you will just stay where you are.
And how does it feel like when you are under your trance or oneng? Mhm.
So before I'm a shaman, when I see the shaman be under trance, in my mind, I'm thinking that they're not aware of their surrounding. I'm thinking that they are off somewhere else. But in having that experience myself and being a shaman and going under trance, what I want to say is that the shaman is very aware of their surrounding. The shaman is under trance. It does not mean that they are off somewhere else. Spiritually, they might be in a different realm, but we have to understand that there's multidimensional realms on the spiritual side. And so the shaman is actually existing in multiple places. So the shaman is actually here physically, and on the spiritual side, the shaman is traveling somewhere, but at the same time, the shaman is still here. The shaman is very aware of that. So it's not like you fall into a trance where you are disconnected from the physical realm and you're disconnected from the people on the outside. Sometimes if you are under trance and there's people on the outside who keep having conversations, and then the shaman kind of pay attention to those, and their spiritual guides will pay attention to it. And so it kind of interferes with what they're doing, and so they might ask for the people on the outside to take the conversation to a different room. So the shaman is very aware of what's going on. What I do see though is that when I'm under trance, sometimes I do a ritual, for 4, 5, 6 hours. The longest I've done, I think, is like 6 hours. Um, and what I'm noticing is that I didn't realize that much time had passed by. When I'm on the other side, it feels like it didn't feel that long. So 6 hours feels like maybe 1 hour to me, right? And so when I come back up here, then I look at the time and I see how much time has gone by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so much time. Um, so what I'm feeling is that time seems to go faster when we trance on the spiritual side, because all that time it doesn't feel long at all. But out here on the physical side, a lot of time has gone by. When I trance, sometimes I do get visions. I used to get more visions when I first started as a shaman. Over the course of time, I didn't want to see all those visions because sometimes you see them when you are not under trance too. And so I had asked for my spiritual guides to not allow me to see too much vision. And so over the course of time, I still get some visions. If I get visions, I will usually get it before. So what happens is that when I go and I do a reading through, trance, I will try to see what is going on with somebody on the spiritual side. And then it will be like I'm sending my guides out to channel into the spirituality of the individual. And then before my guides come back and tell me what the result is, I get an image in my head. I will get an image in my mind. And then my guides will come back and say, this is what we see. This is what the person's problem is. And then I will see that, okay, I usually get the vision first, and then I will get the auditory after that. And then I will be able to refer back to the people on the physical side, and I will send that message to them of what I had found. So those are mostly, that's what I see when I'm under trance. There are some people that see more visions than others. There are some people that don't see any visions at all. So it just depends on what kind of spiritual guides you have that will determine what you see under trance.
That's very interesting. Um, wow, there are a lot of rules and a lot of just different things to consider about shamanism. And like you said, it's to approach this is to be open-minded, and I agree with that statement. The next question is, do you think that shamanism has changed from the past as you understand it? And if so, how?
Um, I think that in the past, people don't use shamanism to learn or to explore what's on the spiritual side. Um, I feel like in the past, what shamans do is that they use what is given to them and they use it to help people to heal the spirit on the spiritual side. And because we, our ancestors, our great grandparents, our parents in Laos, they live in a society where they're doing slash and burn farming. Then they are always, tending to the crops, or they are always very busy trying to make sure that they have enough grains and enough food for the time when they don't have those crops. And so they don't get to rest until around the time of the new year, and that's when people come together and to celebrate the new year. And so there was just less time. The shaman might or might not share information with his family, with his children. The attitude of our elders are different from the attitudes that we might have today. um, you know, this is not something that they might just tell their children. They might also not feel like there's a need to tell about it, because the children are not able to utilize it, because unless they had a shamanic calling. And so the approach, the attitude is just very different. In the past, shamans mainly use the skills of a shaman to heal us on the spiritual side. And it wasn't talked about as much, I believe. My grandma was a shaman, and my my mom's dad was a shaman too. Her grandma was a shaman, who is my great grandma. But what I hear from her is that, she knows very little about it beyond the observations, beyond what you see. I'm not sure exactly the reasons for that. As I said, it was a different time, a different way of living. And so there was less, I believe there was less time for people to just do that, and also less desire to just want to learn about it unless it was useful for you personally. Now there's more of a, shamans wanting to network, or people wanting to learn more about shamanism. Uh, in the past, if you find out that you have a shamanic calling, there was more of resistance to it, and people were not wanting to take that path. I do see now that, as women, more so females, are more accepting of this spiritual calling if they learn that they have one. Men seem to be more resistant to it for whatever reason. Everyone seems to have their own reasons, but mainly it's the path is not an easy path, and if you can avoid it, you want to avoid it because it's complicated. It takes up a lot of time. It interferes with your normal daily life. And so most people don't want to have to deal with that. And even myself, it's not something that I would choose to do if I had a choice. Um, Knowing what I know now, I see the good in it. I see how it has helped me grow as a person. But, you know, back then, if I had a choice, then I would just want a normal life. I don't want all the complications. And my parents are the same. My parents are both shamans, and they actually, my mom has been a shaman as long as I have. She actually started her shamanic journey after I did. And my dad is actually my student. And so they waited all this time. They waited until they were like, elderly, because their health was being really affected. And so that just shows you the kind of resistance that people had then. And now you're seeing a lot more young people that are taking that path, that are more willing to. So, there's a big difference in attitude and towards it. For me personally, I see shamanism as a tool to heal us on the spiritual side. I also see it as a tool to help us grow and learn about spirituality. So if we have this tool that we can use to heal on the spiritual side, why not use this as a tool to also learn about it? And I don't see a lot of shamans utilizing it in that way. And so for me, that's what I want to use it for. And that's what is part of my journey is I use it as a healing modality. I also see it as a tool that I can learn and I can do research on my own about and learn about the spiritual side.
Yeah, I think that's great how shamanism it's a big part of our culture, and like you said, a lot of younger people are more willing to take that route, and I am seeing that as well. I myself, last year I lived with my roommate, and she was telling me that she had some experiences, like some visions that not everyone could see, and it's
Mhm.
very interesting to me to learn about all of these things.
Why do you think younger people are more willing to accept it? As a young person yourself, how do you feel about it? And why do you think that there's more of a willingness to accept it versus, like my parents' generation, they're very resistant to it?
I feel like a lot of the younger generations today, a lot of them are noticing that the Hmong culture is kind of slowly diminishing. We're losing our language, our culture, and because the younger generation is becoming more educated. Maybe they realize that they want to, preserve our culture, and they want to keep keep this up. So I think that that's probably why I see a lot more people willing to take this route, is to preserve our culture and our roots. And then a personal question for me is that is it possible to do readings virtually? And if so, are there differences or difficulties with that?
Okay, yeah. So as I said before, just like doctors, any field, some doctors are better at what they do. Some doctors are, special, they specialize in something. And so not everybody is created equally. And so I think that's one thing that people don't realize. I hear a lot about people saying, oh, I went to this shaman and they said this. And then it's almost like they take the shaman's word and they see it as truth. There's kind of a misconception about a shaman's reading. Um, for me, I always tell everybody, take it with a grain of salt. Take it and understand that, okay, this is what the shaman said. I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. And I'm going to, not like take that and run with it, and take it as truth and accept it. But depending on what it is, I mean, if the shaman is doing fortune telling, then the approach is different how you respond to it. If the shaman is doing fortune telling for you and the shaman has told you something, what I see is that a lot of people seek relationship advice. Don't take that as truth and then go back and take that piece of information and then go and cause other things to happen because you're making decisions based on that. Okay, so don't do that. That's why I don't like to give relationship advice, because I don't want people to take that and to base decisions off of that. If it's where the shaman is doing a reading for you or a healing for you that is for health issues, then it's a good idea to see what happens. Do you see results? If the shaman is just doing a reading, you're not going to see results because the shaman is just telling you that based on your condition, this is what I see. When you see results from what the shaman has done, then you can take that and you can conclude that, oh, this shaman, what was told to me, I believe it to be true, because after the shaman did this healing for me, I got better, or I noticed a difference. But if the shaman does a healing for you and there is no change, nothing, then I mean, anyone can just claim to be a shaman and to just give you any kind of reading, So you have to be mindful, you have to be smart about it. You have to be able to like make decisions, smart decisions, in spite of who you talk to. And so, there's a lot of people that do that. Some shamans will be able to do readings for you. There's a lot of shamans that might do tarot card readings. I don't do tarot card readings. I can, but I choose not to. My guides don't want me to use tarot cards because it's considered impure source where it comes from. I can only use things that are like directly from my guides or healings that are shown to me by God or by my spiritual guides or by the heavens. So I can't go and use things that are like man-made or created where the sources are considered impure enough. I can do readings virtually. Spiritually, we are just energy. And so everybody has energy, and our guides, our spiritual guides, are just energy. You can take 3 breaths, and then I would do the same, and then I could channel into your spiritual energy, and then I can give you a reading about yourself. I can do that virtually. Even healing rituals, shamans can do that remotely. They don't need you to be present in order to do it, but usually what shamans will want is for you to send them like your shirt or whatever items the shaman asks for that belongs to you. And the shaman can use that to do the healing ritual in the same way as if it's in person. The only thing that might be hard is sometimes the shaman will encounter something and the shaman will need to ask you about it. And so you would just have to be like present virtually, I guess. And then that would be okay. That would be able to make up for that absence of being there in physical person. It's always better in person, but if it's where you are in a different state, a different town, then the shaman can always do virtual readings too.
Awesome. And then finally, the last question. Earlier, you were talking about how there are a lot of hardships that come with, um, having those abilities and before you enter your journey as a shaman. Would you have any advice to give to those people who are struggling with those hardships?
If you have encountered something that you're struggling with in your life, and whether it be physical health or mental health issues, sometimes those mental health issues can come and affect your relationships with your family, with your significant other, with other people. And so it can have significant impact on your life and where the direction of where you're going. There are some people that who might have spiritual calling, they have a hard time finding direction in their life. So somebody that, maybe perhaps when they were younger, they were doing really well, they were excelling, they had dreams and goals. But somewhere along the way, they started having issues that, came into their life and kind of causing all of that to fall apart. And they're at a very different place now than where they thought they would be. And so sometimes, those issues might be due to you having a shamanic calling. Um, and I would say be open minded. Seek out professional help. But if that doesn't help you, seek out spiritual healing. You can always do both. You can always integrate the kind of healing that you get, and sometimes intervention is being able to utilize those resources so that you prevent future issues from happening that might be worse than where you are now. um, Seek out somebody that can help you, seek out a shaman that you trust, that can look into your spiritual side to see what might be the cause of that. And I would say that don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on who you are, because in the end, the person that is going to be fighting for you the most is going to be you. And so, wherever you are on your journey in life, on your journey, as a shaman or just as a person, um, remember who you are. Remember what you stand for. Remember what your goals you used to have, and fight for that person, because that's who you are and that's who you need to fight for. I think that sometimes we just need to discover ourselves. We just need to have faith and take that step so that we can get the help that we need, so that we can find balances for ourselves.
All right, so we are approaching the end of the podcast. Thank you, GaoNeng, for being here and giving us a lot of information on shamanism. Everything you said was so interesting, and I'm sure that our community will be very intrigued to learn all of this tonight.
If you are interested in learning more about shamanism, I do have a YouTube page and I have a Facebook page that I teach what I know about shamanism. And I also share my journey and different things that I learn about while I'm on this journey. If you are interested, you can follow me on ShamanTalk.
Once again, thank you, GaoNeng, for being here. A couple of open announcements from HSU. We have Diana's Shamanism workshop. It's coming up in February, and I will also leave the date and information in the description as well. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel's name is HSU Aggies. Don't forget to press the like, share, and comment button. Thank you all for tuning in, and see you at the next podcast. Bye.